Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into Thomas Sankara.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited about this one.
Me too.
You guys have sent in some fascinating material from Daateku channel about Sankara's life and work in Burkina Faso. And
it's really cool stuff.
Yeah, this guy's story is wild.
Yeah, definitely.
Full of twists and turns, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, he was dubbed Africa's Che Guevara, but was he truly a visionary leader?
Right.
Or, was there a darker side to his revolution?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? I mean, it's a question that's been debated for decades.
For sure, and rightly so.
Yeah.
I mean, Sankara's story is really a potent blend of ambition, idealism, and, as you pointed out, controversy.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me is that his path to becoming a revolutionary icon,
right,
it wasn't exactly a straight line.
Oh, really? Okay, so you've got me intrigued. What else could Africa's Che Guevara have possibly envisioned for himself?
Okay, so believe it or not, he first set his sights on the priesthood.
Wow. Okay, hold on. So from aspiring priest to a Marxist revolutionary leading a nation. I mean, that's fascinating. Talk about a plot twist. What led to such a dramatic change in direction?
Well, it's a combination of factors, really. I mean, you can't pinpoint it to one thing.
Yeah.
But, his education played a huge role, both in Upper Volta, as Burkina Faso was then known, and later in Madagascar, he was exposed to progressive thinkers and revolutionary ideologies.
I see.
He delved into the works of Marx and Lenin.
Oh, wow.
And, those writings clearly left a mark on him.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just theory. Real-world events also shaped his thinking.
You're talking about his experience in the border war with Mali.
Exactly. He fought in that conflict.
Right.
But later in life, he denounced it as useless and unjust.
Wow.
And this shift in perspective really speaks volumes about his evolving political ideology and his growing commitment to peace.
It sounds like those early experiences really laid the groundwork for his revolutionary spirit.
For sure.
But how did this former aspiring priest go from studying Marx to actually leading a revolution?
Right, so that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Sankara's rise to power was astonishingly fast.
Yeah.
He moved through government ranks at a speed that would make your head spin.
Wow.
First Minister of Information.
Okay.
Then Prime Minister, and finally at the incredibly young age of 33.
33?
He became president.
Wow, okay. A coup at 33, that's a dramatic entrance onto the world stage.
It certainly was. And his leadership style set him apart from the typical political elite.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, while others reveled in displays of wealth and privilege, Sankara chose to bike to work.
Oh, wow.
This wasn't just a quirky habit.
Yeah.
It was a deliberate act, a powerful symbol of his commitment to connecting with everyday people and rejecting the trappings of power.
I see.
Of course, we can't forget the role of Blaise Compaoré in this story.
Right.
He was instrumental in both Sankara's rise and, tragically, his eventual downfall.
Yeah, their relationship was complicated, to say the least, and deeply intertwined with the unfolding events.
Absolutely.
So we've got this charismatic leader, a nation ripe for change, and a revolution brewing. Tell me about the democratic and popular revolution that Sankara spearheaded.
Oh.
What were his core goals, and how did he envision transforming Burkina Faso?
Okay, so at its heart, Sankara's revolution was a declaration of independence on multiple fronts.
Okay.
Political, economic, and cultural.
Got it.
He was vehemently opposed to any form of imperialism or neocolonialism.
Right.
And fiercely championed the idea of self-reliance for Burkina Faso and for Africa as a whole.
Wow, that's bold, especially for a leader in a region heavily influenced by former colonial powers.
Yeah, it was a really bold move.
It sounds like Sankara wasn't afraid to shake things up.
Not at all. I mean, he went as far as renaming the country, changing it from Upper Volta to Burkina Faso, which translates to land of incorruptible people.
Wow, okay, so this wasn't just symbolic.
No, not at all.
It was a deliberate act to break free from the colonial past and signal the birth of a new national identity.
Exactly, and it was built on integrity and self-determination.
Got it.
He also established the Council of the Revolution.
Okay.
A unique governing body that included both civilians and soldiers.
Interesting.
This signified a radical departure from traditional power structures and emphasized emphasized Sankara's vision of inclusive governance and grassroots participation.
Those are some pretty big moves. It seems like Sankara had grand plans for Burkina Faso.
Yeah, he did.
But how did he actually translate those plans into action? What concrete steps did he take to make a difference in people's lives?
He implemented a range of policies that were nothing short of daring.
Like what?
He tackled issues like healthcare, poverty, infrastructure, and even environmental degradation.
Wow.
He understood that true revolution meant more than just political slogans. It required addressing the fundamental needs of the people.
So let's get into the specifics. What did Sankara actually do to make a difference on the ground?
One of his most notable initiatives was a mass vaccination campaign.
Okay.
Aimed at combating diseases like poliomeningitis and measles.
Wow. So this wasn't just about improving health, it was about saving lives.
Exactly. And under his leadership, Burkina Faso saw a dramatic decrease in infant mortality rates.
That's a huge accomplishment. But what about things like housing jobs and the environment? It sounds like Sankara had a pretty ambitious agenda.
He did, and he tackled those issues with remarkable vigor.
Okay.
He initiated public works projects that utilized local resources.
I see.
For example, he set up brick factories to construct housing simultaneously, creating jobs and addressing the issue of urban slums.
Oh, wow, that's pretty smart.
Right. And then he also launched a massive reforestation campaign.
Okay.
With millions of trees planted to combat desertification.
Wow, that was incredibly forward-thinking, especially for the time.
It really was.
And then there was the Battle of the Rails, where he oversaw the construction of 700 kilometers of railway.
Right.
Without relying on foreign aid, that was a bold statement about self-reliance and the nation's ability to achieve great things on its own.
I agree.
He was really pushing the boundaries of what was considered possible, wasn't he? And from what I've read, his commitment to women's rights was equally revolutionary.
Absolutely. Sankara famously said, "There is no true social revolution without the liberation of women."
Wow.
He didn't just pay lip service to the idea.
Yeah.
He took concrete action.
What did he do?
His government banned harmful practices like female genital mutilation, forced marriages, and polygamy.
Wow.
He also actively encouraged women's participation in government and the workforce, challenging traditional gender roles and promoting greater equality.
So we see Sankara as this charismatic leader enacting sweeping changes.
Yeah.
But were there any downsides to his revolutionary zeal? Were there any unintended consequences or criticisms leveled against his methods?
That's a crucial point. While Sankara's intentions were often admirable,
Right.
his methods sometimes raised concerns about the potential for overreach and the suppression of dissent.
So even with noble goals, there's a risk of power being misused even in a revolution.
Exactly. Another example is the establishment of the Revolutionary Defense Committees, or CDRs.
Okay.
They were designed to be a grassroots force, a counterweight to the army, and a tool for social control. However, concerns emerged about their potential to become instruments of oppression,
Right.
silencing opposing voices, and enforcing a strict adherence to the revolutionary agenda.
It sounds like navigating the complexities of power and control, even in the context of a revolution, can be incredibly difficult.
It really can.
Even with the best intentions, there's always the danger of unintended consequences of power dynamics shifting in ways that undermine the very ideals the revolution sought to uphold.
Yeah, for sure.
This brings us to another complex aspect of Sankara's rule.
Okay.
His relationship with the Mossi ethnic group, the largest in Burkina Faso. It seems his efforts to reduce the influence of traditional leaders like the Morho Naba in favor of national unity sparked considerable debate.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's not always a clear-cut path, even when striving for positive change.
Absolutely.
This leads us to another significant event during Sankara's rule, the Agadir Strip War.
Okay.
What can you tell us about this conflict with Mali?
Well, on the surface,
Yeah.
it was a border dispute over the Agadir Strip, a piece of land rich in mineral resources.
I see.
But the conflict ran deeper than that.
Oh, really?
Sankara personally disliked Mali's president, Moussa Traoré.
So personal feelings were entangled with political strategy.
It seems so.
Interesting.
The conflict itself had a significant impact on Burkina Faso,
In what ways?
not just in terms of military engagements, but also on its international relations and internal politics.
It must have put a strain on Sankara's leadership, especially considering his stance on self-reliance and Pan-African unity.
It did.
This brings us to his relationship with France. Didn't he have a rather tense relationship with the former colonial power?
He did. Sankara was a staunch critic of France's continued influence in Africa.
Right.
Particularly its economic policies and its support for oppressive regimes.
Yeah.
He openly challenged French President Mitterrand.
Wow.
Even accusing him of supporting apartheid in South Africa.
That's a bold move, considering France's historical and economic ties to the region. Did these actions have any repercussions for Burkina Faso?
There were consequences.
Like what?
Most notably, a reduction in French aid.
Wow.
Sankara knew that challenging such a powerful nation wouldn't come without a price, but he was willing to pay it to uphold his principles.
It's clear that Sankara wasn't afraid to go against the grain, even when it came to international relations.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see how he balanced this with his efforts to build alliances with other leaders who shared his vision for a more independent and equitable Africa. He found common ground with figures like Jerry Rawlings in Ghana and Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, and his collaboration with Cuba, sending young Burkinabe there for training and education, is fascinating.
Yeah.
What impact do you think this exchange had on Burkina Faso?
That program with Cuba is a prime example of Sankara's willingness to look beyond traditional alliances and seek partnerships that aligned with his revolutionary goals.
Right.
It's difficult to measure the full extent of the impact.
Yeah.
But it certainly contributed to a sense of solidarity among developing nations and fostered a cultural exchange that broadened perspectives within Burkina Faso.
Sadly, Sankara's revolutionary journey was cut short. Let's talk about the events that led to his assassination in 1987.
This is where the story takes a truly tragic turn.
Yeah.
On October 15th, 1987, Sankara was killed in a coup led by none other than his former comrade Blaise Compaoré.
Wow.
The circumstances surrounding his death are shrouded in controversy with conflicting accounts and lingering questions about who was ultimately responsible.
It's a stark reminder that revolutionary movements are often volatile, and internal power struggles can have devastating consequences. What were the immediate repercussions of Sankara's assassination?
The nation was plunged into uncertainty, and Compaoré swiftly consolidated his power.
What did he do?
He immediately began reversing many of Sankara's policies, rejoining the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank.
Wow.
Organizations that Sankara had vehemently opposed as instruments of neo-colonial control.
It almost feels like Compaoré was attempting to erase Sankara's legacy to undo everything he had worked for.
In many ways, that's exactly what happened.
Wow.
Compaoré's rule, which lasted for a staggering 27 years.
27 years?
Marked a significant departure from the revolutionary path Sankara had forged.
Wow.
It wasn't until Compaoré himself was overthrown in 2014 that Burkina Faso began to grapple with Sankara's legacy and seek justice for his assassination.
It sounds like Sankara's story, despite its tragic end, continues to resonate deeply within Burkina Faso and beyond.
For sure.
But what about his lasting legacy? Why does his message still hold such power even decades after his death?
Well, Sankara's legacy is complex and multifaceted.
Yeah.
He was a figure who inspired both immense admiration and fierce criticism.
Right.
He's a revolutionary who challenged the status quo, championed Pan-African unity, and fought tirelessly for social justice and economic independence.
Yeah.
But he was also a leader whose methods sometimes raised concerns about authoritarianism and the suppression of dissent.
So how do we reconcile these seemingly contradictory aspects of his leadership?
Right.
Was he a visionary leader who tragically fell victim to betrayal and political machinations? Or was he a flawed revolutionary whose own actions ultimately undermined his goals?
That's the question at the heart of Sankara's enduring legacy.
Yeah.
It's a question that requires us to delve deeper into the nuances of his life,
Right.
his policies, and the historical context in which he operated.
Yeah.
It's a question that compels us to grapple with the complexities of leadership, the challenges of revolutionary change, and the enduring struggle for justice and equality.
It seems like Sankara's story is more than just a historical account.
Absolutely.
It's a reflection of the ongoing struggle for a better world, a struggle that continues to this day.
Precisely. And that's why his story continues to resonate with so many people, even decades after his death.
Right.
It's a story that challenges us to think critically about the nature of power, the complexities of social change, or the enduring relevance of his message. In a world still grappling with issues of inequality, injustice, and neocolonialism.
It's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And we've only just scratched the surface.
Exactly.
There's so much more to unpack here, but I think we need to take a break.
Yeah, for sure. We'll be back in a bit with more on the fascinating life and legacy of Thomas Sankara.
Definitely.
fascinating how Sankara's legacy continues to spark such debate. He seems to embody both the promise and the peril of revolutionary change.
Yeah, for sure.
You mentioned earlier that there were concerns about his methods, even if his intentions were often noble. Can you elaborate on that? Were there specific policies or actions that raised red flags?
Well, one of the most controversial aspects of Sankara's rule was the establishment of the People's Revolutionary Tribunals.
Okay.
These tribunals were intended to provide swift justice and hold corrupt officials accountable. But they often lacked due process safeguards, raising concerns about fairness and the potential for abuse.
So even in a revolution aimed at creating a more just society, the temptation to bypass traditional legal norms can be strong, and the line between revolutionary justice and authoritarianism can become blurred.
Exactly. And then there were the Revolutionary Defense Committees.
The CDRs.
The CDRs, right?
Yeah.
These grassroots organizations were initially conceived as a way to mobilize the population and defend the revolution. But they also became a tool for social control.
I see.
Critics argued that the CDRs, while often effective in implementing social programs and promoting revolutionary ideals, sometimes used intimidation tactics and silenced dissenting voices.
It's a classic dilemma, isn't it?
It is.
How do you balance the need for order and control with the preservation of individual liberties, especially during a period of radical social transformation?
It's a question that has plagued revolutionaries throughout history.
Right.
And Sankara's Burkina Faso was no exception.
Yeah.
He genuinely believed in empowering the people. But he also sought to maintain a firm grip on power, perhaps fearing counter-revolutionary forces or challenges to his authority.
This tension between empowering the masses and consolidating power is a recurring theme in revolutionary movements. It's almost as if the very act of seizing power and enacting radical change creates a paradox, a need to control the very forces you've unleashed.
Yeah, that's a very astute observation. It's almost inherent in the nature of revolution.
Yeah.
You create this incredible energy and momentum for change.
Right.
But then you have to figure out how to channel that energy, how to direct it.
Right.
And inevitably how to contain it. And that's where things often get messy.
And this tension was also evident in Sankara's approach to traditional power structures.
Right.
Particularly his relationship with the Mossi ethnic group and their leaders.
Yeah, Sankara saw traditional hierarchies and the power of chiefs as obstacles to national unity and modernization. He aimed to centralize power and reduce the influence of traditional leaders, which led to friction with the Mossi, who felt their customs and authority were being undermined.
It's a reminder that even with the best intentions, revolutionary leaders often face pushback from those who feel threatened by change.
Absolutely.
Even if that change is aimed at creating a more just and equitable society.
Revolutions are rarely neat and tidy affairs.
Right.
They disrupt existing power structures, challenge long-held beliefs, and often create winners and losers, even within the revolutionary camp.
So despite the controversies and criticisms, Sankara remained a captivating figure both in Burkina Faso and internationally. What do you think was the source of his enduring appeal? Why did his message resonate so strongly, even with those who might have disagreed with his methods?
Well, Sankara had an undeniable charisma and a genuine passion for justice that transcended borders. He spoke eloquently about the need for African self-reliance, challenged global power structures, and lived a life of stark simplicity in stark contrast to the extravagance of many African leaders.
Those actions certainly seem to align with his message of equality and shared sacrifice. It's a far cry from the image of a power-hungry dictator.
Exactly, and that authenticity resonated with people.
Yeah.
He wasn't just preaching revolution.
Right.
He was living it. His actions matched his words, and that made him a powerful symbol of hope and change, particularly for young people across Africa who are yearning for a leader who reflected their aspirations for a more just and equitable world.
It's almost as if he embodied a new style of leadership.
Yeah.
One that rejected the trappings of power and prioritized service to the people.
That's a really insightful way to put it. He wasn't interested in accumulating wealth or building a personality cult.
Right.
He famously said, "There are 7 million Thomas Sankaras," when asked why he didn't want his portrait displayed in public places.
Wow.
He believed in collective leadership, in empowering the people to become the agents of their own liberation. He also had this incredible ability to connect with people through music.
Oh, really?
He wrote Burkina Faso's national anthem himself, a testament to his creative spirit and his belief in the power of culture to inspire and unite.
It's remarkable how he was able to blend revolutionary politics with cultural expression. It's not something you often see in political leaders.
It speaks to his understanding of the importance of symbolism.
Yeah.
And his ability to tap into the collective consciousness of a nation.
Right.
He knew that revolutions require more than just policies and institutions. They need a soul, a spirit, a sense of shared purpose that transcends the individual.
His message about African self-reliance resonated particularly strongly with those who had grown weary of neocolonialism and external interference.
He challenged the traditional donor-recipient relationship, arguing that true development could only come from within.
Yeah.
He famously said, "He who feeds you controls you."
Powerful stuff.
He believed that African nations needed to break free from dependency on foreign aid and chart their own course, guided by their own values and priorities.
That's a powerful message, and one that continues to resonate today.
It does.
But was rejecting foreign aid entirely a wise decision? Didn't it potentially limit Burkina Faso's access to much-needed resources?
Well, it's a complex issue.
Yeah.
There were valid arguments on both sides.
Right.
Critics argued that Sankara's rejection of foreign aid was impractical and potentially harmful to Burkina Faso's development.
Okay.
They pointed to the need for external assistance to address pressing issues like poverty, healthcare, and infrastructure.
Yeah, those are important.
Right. But Sankara countered that much of the aid came with strings attached, often perpetuating dependency and undermining national sovereignty.
So it was a calculated risk, a gamble on the belief that self-reliance, even if it meant short-term hardship, would ultimately lead to greater freedom and autonomy in the long run.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment.
Whether it was the right decision is still debated today.
Absolutely.
But what's undeniable is that Sankara's stance on foreign aid challenged conventional thinking.
For sure.
And sparked a crucial conversation about the true nature of development and the complexities of the relationship between African nations and the global north.
Yeah, and it's a conversation that remains relevant today, as many developing nations continue to grapple with the challenges of balancing external assistance with the pursuit of genuine self-determination.
Sankara's story is full of contradictions and complexities.
It is.
He was a revolutionary who championed equality, but whose methods sometimes raised concerns about authoritarianism.
Yeah.
He was a leader who embraced simplicity, but whose ambitions were grand. He was a man who inspired millions, but whose life was tragically cut short.
His story forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about the nature of power, the challenges of social change, and the messy reality of revolutions.
Yeah.
It's a story that defies easy categorization, but one that continues to provoke thought and inspire debate decades after his death.
And that's what makes him such a compelling figure, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
You know, it's amazing how even decades after his death, Sankara's image still pops up in protests and movements all over the world. It's like he's become this larger-than-life symbol of resistance.
He really has. I mean, you see his face on murals, posters, T-shirts.
Right.
He's become an icon.
Yeah.
Especially for younger generations.
Yeah, I think...
You know, the nickname Africa's Che Guevara is pretty spot on.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
I think so.
I mean, they both represent this passionate fight against injustice.
Right.
And a vision for a world that prioritizes people over profit.
It makes you wonder what Sankara would think about the world today, about the issues we're facing.
It's tempting to speculate, isn't it?
Yeah.
But what we can say for sure is that his ideas about self-reliance, economic justice, and challenging oppressive systems are as relevant now as they were back then.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the movements calling for debt cancellation, for fair trade, for climate justice.
Yeah.
They're all echoing the principles that Sankara championed.
You're right. His message seems to have this timeless quality that transcends specific political contexts.
Exactly. And that's part of what makes his legacy so powerful.
Yeah.
It speaks to a deep human yearning for a world that is fairer, more equitable, and more sustainable.
Yeah, I agree.
But we also have to acknowledge that the path towards that world is often fraught with danger.
Yeah.
I mean, Sankara's assassination is a stark reminder that those who dare to challenge the status quo, those who speak truth to power, often pay a heavy price.
It's a sobering thought, but it also underscores the courage it takes to stand up for what you believe in, especially when facing powerful forces that want to maintain the status quo.
Sankara knew the risks, yet he refused to be silenced. He chose to live a life of purpose, a life dedicated to fighting for a better future, even if it meant putting himself in harm's way.
It makes you think about your own life, doesn't it?
It does.
It makes you question what you're willing to stand up for.
Right.
What changes you want to see in the world and what actions you're taking to make those changes a reality.
I think that's one of the most powerful aspects of Sankara's legacy.
Yeah.
It's not just about admiring him from afar.
Right.
It's about asking ourselves how we can embody his spirit of resistance. His commitment to justice.
Yeah.
And his unwavering belief in the power of the people to create a better world.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of global problems. To feel like our individual actions don't really matter.
Yeah. But Sankara's story reminds us that even small acts of defiance, even seemingly insignificant efforts to make a difference, can have a ripple effect.
I like that.
You know, every time someone speaks out against injustice, every time someone challenges a discriminatory policy, every time someone chooses to live a more sustainable lifestyle, they're contributing to the kind of world that Sankara envisioned.
Right.
A world where solidarity, equality, and human dignity are paramount.
So maybe that's the ultimate lesson we can draw.
I think so.
From Sankara's life and legacy.
Yeah.
It's not about achieving some grand utopian vision overnight.
Right.
It's about the constant struggle, the daily commitment to making the world a little bit better, a little bit more, a little bit more in line with the values we believe in.
He showed us that change is possible, that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the human spirit can triumph. He reminded us that we are not powerless. That we all have a role to play in shaping the future.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Thomas Sankara, I'm left with a sense of both sadness and inspiration.
Yeah, I understand that.
Sadness for the life cut short, for the potential unrealized, but also a deep sense of inspiration, a renewed belief in the power of ideas to change the world, and a call to action to continue the fight for a more just and equitable future.
He may be gone, but his spirit lives on.
Yeah.
And the countless individuals and movements that continue to fight for the causes he championed. His legacy is a reminder that the struggle for a better world is an ongoing one. A relay race where each generation passes the torch to the next. Carrying forward the flame of hope and resistance.
And who knows, maybe that's the most fitting tribute we can offer to Thomas Sankara, to keep that flame burning brightly, to never give up on the dream of a world where justice, equality, and human dignity prevail.
I think you're right.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive into the life and legacy of Thomas Sankara. As always, we encourage you to do your own research and form your own opinions.
Absolutely.
But most importantly, stay curious. And keep learning.
For sure.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.